Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another video. It is Monday. I hope you all are doing well. Hope you all have had a fantastic weekend. Little bit of a chilled one for us, as we said on Friday. No game for Everton this weekend, so I decided to use the time to have a little bit of a rest and not think about football and not think about Everton and not think about what's going on at the moment, because it has been a fairly stressful, well, few weeks, few months, few years, however you want to say it. It's been certainly a stressful last week or so for Everton, with all of the news about the P&S stuff, and obviously we've had a couple of games in there as well. So I thought I'd take the weekend to just step back and have a little bit of a rest, because it was giving me headaches, let's say that, and I'm sure it was giving all of you headaches as well. But we are back with another transfer video. We're going to talk through some of the latest news and rumours surrounding potential incomings and outgoings at Everton Football Club in this transfer window. As I say at the beginning of every transfer video, we are very much in silly season at the moment. If you don't know what silly season is, it is the period of time in the year where the transfer window opens and Everton are then linked with about 426,000 players before the transfer window shuts, of which we will sign maybe 4 or 5 of them max in a summer. In January, maybe 1 or 2 max. However, it looks like this month it may not even be that many, because obviously of Everton's financial restrictions and financial constraints. But we're still linked with players, so we may as well sit down and we may as well talk about them. Definitely more outgoing links than there is incoming links at the moment, other than the sort of typical usual Everton are interested in this player, Everton are interested in that player. There isn't much in way of players coming into the football club. There isn't many rumours that are, providing us with any solid evidence or solid story to suggest that Everton will be making any incoming signings over the next few weeks or so. That's not to say that we won't be, and that's not to say that we won't sign anybody before the end of the transfer window. However, there certainly isn't any names that are sticking out at the moment that seemingly look like they are about to walk through the door at Finch Farm. It's definitely more focused on outgoing transfers. So yeah, let's just jump straight into it without further ado. Arnaud Danjuma is a player who, of course, has been in the news over the last couple of weeks or so. A player that was linked with a move away from Everton Football Club a couple of weeks ago to Lyon. We obviously sat down and we done a couple of videos talking about that move and about how specifically I don't think Everton should be willing to let Arnaud Danjuma, or anybody for that matter, leave the football club this month without direct replacement. There's, as I say, there's a lot of links of players being rumoured to be moving away from the football club this month, and I just think it would be absolutely silly for Everton to allow anybody to leave without a viable replacement lined up, because yes, we are in a financial situation that means that we aren't allowed to bring anybody in unless we sell players effectively, or we're certainly not going to be buying any players. We may bring a couple in on loan, but there won't be any huge transfers being made unless, of course, there's huge exits. However, to allow players to leave in January is almost a luxury, and a luxury that Everton can't really afford at the moment. And despite the fact that Arnaud Danjuma may feel like he deserves more game time, despite the fact that Arnaud Danjuma might want to leave the football club to go and pursue a career somewhere else where he's likely to get more game time, for me, it's got to be what's best for everybody involved. And allowing a player who is a first team squad player to leave the football club without replacement is just unacceptable for me when you are in a position that Everton are in. We have had 10 points deducted already this season. We're obviously under investigation for another potential breach, which may end up in another points deduction. We're obviously fighting in a relegation battle already, and we've got a threadbare squad as it is. So allowing anybody to leave that squad without viable replacement for me just doesn't make any sense. Having said that, we have had a little bit of an update over the last week or so regarding Arnald Danjuma. According to Foot Mercato, they have said Arnald Danjuma looks set to leave Everton for Lyon. Everton have sanctioned Danjuma's departure with a replacement lined up. Now, interesting that they should say that, with a replacement lined up, but not go into any information about who that replacement is. If they've had news that Everton have got a replacement lined up for Arnald Danjuma, then surely they would have some form of insight about who that replacement is. We haven't heard anything about that. Sort of a couple of murmurs about Jesse Lingard coming in, and a couple of, sort of conversation starters, I would say, more so than rumours. But, I'm not quite sure there's anything in them either. What we've got to remember is Jesse Lingard is been out of football for some time now, obviously, since leaving Nottingham Forest. He didn't really do anything at Nottingham Forest when he was there, and he was on a big contract for big money, and everybody always refers to Jesse Lingard as, well, what about that season at West Ham? Look at how excellent he was when he come in at West Ham, and he completely turned their season around. He did. He was absolutely fantastic, and he improved them hugely, but that was 2 or 3 years ago now. And in the 2 or 3 years that have passed since then, he, as I said, he's gone to Nottingham Forest for a huge wage. He's not really impressed. He's not really got much game time there. He's since left there after not being given a new contract, and he's not gone anywhere since then. His wage demands will be absolutely horrific. Certainly, demands that Everton cannot match at the moment. Now, if he agrees to take a huge wage cut, then it becomes a different conversation, doesn't it? Jesse Lingard on 150 grand a week is a much different conversation than Jesse Lingard on 40 grand a week, for example. But that would have to be the first, I suppose, hurdle to get over for the football club, is whether or not he would be willing to take a pay cut. Because if he isn't willing to take a pay cut, then he isn't coming anywhere near Everton Football Club. If he is willing to take a pay cut, then you then start to, balance out the positives and the negatives. Obviously, the negatives are his age. The negatives are the fact that he's not been involved at football for 6 months or so now, which isn't great. In terms of him having to come in and get, hit the ground running straight away in the Premier League. Positives are he's got quality. He's obviously a very talented footballer. Is his mindset in the right place at this moment in time for a club in the position that Everton are in? I'm not too sure. But as I said, those are only sort of murmurs at the moment, because people know that he's on a free transfer and he's available and he's not got a club, and, he's played in the Premier League, etc. So it makes sense to link him with a move to Everton. There's nothing solid in those, so we won't touch too much on them until it does become something solid in them. But according to Fabrizio Romano, this was on Thursday, I believe, Olympic Lyon are pushing again to sign Arnald Danjuma. Talks are ongoing and the player remains keen on the move, as could have guaranteed game time. Pressure now on Everton to make final decision, as there is no green light. Look, I've just said before that for me personally, I don't think Everton should be allowing any player to leave without a direct replacement being lined up to come in. However, I have a feeling that Arnald Danjuma will leave this football club this window. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I've seen Everton do this before with it, where we've allowed players to leave in situations where we maybe shouldn't have done. Something about, the other night when we played against Crystal Palace in the Cup, and obviously, Danjuma had played a couple of days prior to that against Aston Villa. He played against Palace in the reverse fixture in the Cup, and for him to not even get on the pitch last Wednesday, and Lewis Dobbin to be brought on instead of him, and obviously Beto come on as well. It made me sort of sit there and think that was a game that I felt that he was almost guaranteed to start. Almost, because obviously of the missing Abdoulaye Doucouré in there, and knowing that, obviously Jack Harrison has played a lot of football recently and hasn't particularly been impressive, and Dwight McNeil obviously coming off the back of an injury as well. So I felt it was almost a nailed on that Danjuma would feature in that game against Crystal Palace, or, if not start, at least come off the bench, at least have some involvement in it. And when he wasn't involved, and, the manager's going with Andre Gomez over him, and then obviously bringing Lewis Dobbin on over him as well, it made me sort of think, yeah, I can't see him still being at this football club come the end of the window. Now, obviously, early reports suggest that Everton have got a replacement lined up. I'm not quite sure that is the case because, as I said, there's been no names that have been floating about recently. It's not like we're being linked heavily with another winger or another attacking midfielder, and you're thinking, well, okay, I can see them coming in and then maybe Danjuma leaving. We're not really being linked with anyone at the moment, so I'm not quite sure that there is a replacement lined up. Don't get me wrong. I think Everton probably will be out there looking for a replacement for Danjuma because they'll probably see this as, well, if we can get somebody in to replace him, then yeah, we'll allow him to leave because he obviously doesn't want to be here. The manager obviously doesn't quite fancy him for one reason or another. So it would make sense for all parties for that deal to end and for him to move on and for us to bring somebody else in. But that's not how football works, and football isn't as easy as just going and finding a replacement who can come in and create goals and score goals and make chances in the Premier League. Otherwise, every team would do it, wouldn't they? So, yeah, difficult situation. My stance and standpoint is still very much what it was a couple of weeks ago, and that is I wouldn't be allowing anybody to leave this football club in this January transfer window without a direct suitable replacement coming in. However, I've just got this feeling that within the next week or so, we will find out much more about this situation, and in my opinion, I think he will be allowed to move on. Now, what does that mean for the club? What does that mean for Sean Dyche? Well, it means that we're one player light as of this moment until Everton go and bring a replacement in, until Everton go and sign a winger or an attacking midfielder or a second forward, then we are one light and we can't afford, we absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, cannot afford to leave this transfer window weaker than what we've entered it. I can accept and appreciate that it will be very difficult to add to the squad in this transfer window and it will be very difficult to improve this squad come the end of it. But I simply cannot accept Everton weakening this squad. It would make no sense to me whatsoever. And I know people will say, oh, but he doesn't want to be here. His attitude this, his attitude that, this, that, and the other. At the end of the day, we cannot afford to weaken this squad any further. Whether players want to be here or not, they're contracted to be here and they're paid an awful lot of money to be here and they signed that contract stating they wanted to be here. So suck it up, stop spitting your dummy out, stop acting like a child and get on with it. That should be the message from the football club if they can't find a suitable replacement. It shouldn't be, oh, well, you're going to kick up a fuss and start whinging and crying, so we'll allow you to leave. Because then we'll just leave ourselves with 12 players in a squad and expect those same players to compete week in, week out with no rotation and no ability to change. So for me, as I said, I think there's only two outcomes here. Either A, Everton do have a suitable replacement lined up that can be brought in quite easily and they bring them in and then Danjuma's allowed to leave and we move forward, or B, the club grow a pair of bollocks and say to him, you're not going anywhere because we can't replace you and we need you as part of this squad, and Danjuma sucks it up and says, okay, fine. And I think he would do that. I don't think he is the type of person to spit his dummy out and moan and complain and whinge. I think he probably would just suck it up, knowing full well that he will be gone in the summer anyway. But that, they, for me, are the only two outcomes. We can't be in a position where we say, oh, yeah, go on, you can leave because you're moaning and you're kicking up a fuss, and then we just won't replace you. It would be a disaster. It would be an absolute disaster. It's one thing to expect the fans to understand and appreciate that we may not be able to improve in this window when we need to improve, by the way. We desperately need to improve the squad. We are in a relegation battle. Now, whether we should or shouldn't be is a different question, but we are in a relegation battle at this current moment. So, to expect fans to understand and appreciate the fact that we may not be able to improve on the squad in this window is one thing. To then weaken the squad because there's a certain player in there that wants to play a little bit more and isn't quite happy with the fact that he isn't playing much is baffling for me. Absolutely baffling. And as I said, if you've got a replacement lined up that can come in and get their head down and work and that can, offer more than what Danjuma has offered, then fine. Absolutely fine. No issue with it whatsoever. But how many players are out there that can do that? And judging by the fact that we haven't really been linked with anyone, other than Hannibal, who of course has now gone to Seville and that has been confirmed, I'm not really sure we have got a replacement lined up. And that is the position that we're in. Maybe we have, and it just hasn't been linked to the media yet. Maybe we have, and we just don't know about it. But certainly as of this moment, it feels very much like nobody will be coming in and Danjuma will be leaving. And that for me just doesn't sit well. It just doesn't sit well with me. What would we do if Onana turned around and said, well, I want to go? Would we go, oh, go on, then you can go for 15 million? No, we wouldn't. We'd say, well, unless we get 100 odd million quid, you ain't going anywhere. Because that's how business works and that's how football works. And yeah, I'm a little bit uncomfortable with the Danjuma situation. I am, because, like I said, I think to leave this transfer window weaker than what we went into it would just be another case of gross mismanagement. It really would. But anyway, moving on. Let's talk about Onana, because he has been in the news over the last week or so. According to Luke Edwards at The Telegraph, Newcastle United are looking into signing Everton's Amadou Onana to solve their midfield problem. Now, this next quote is laughable. You will laugh at this, and you will laugh out loud. Luke Edwards also goes on to say the Belgium is believed to be unsettled, and Newcastle see Everton's asking price of around £50 million as problematic, and are looking into if Everton would accept a loan with an obligation to buy this summer. That is quite possibly one of the funniest sentences I've ever read out in my life. And when I read it initially on Friday, I couldn't stop giggling for about half an hour. Firstly, the idea of Everton allowing Amadou Onana to leave in this window is just, again, mind-blowing and doesn't make any sense to me. Now, people can have their opinions on Amadou Onana, and I know there's a lot of Evertonians that do have an opinion on Amadou Onana, and I know there's a lot of Evertonians that aren't particularly his biggest fan and don't particularly believe he's blown up any trees. The reality of the situation is, whether you love him or you don't love him, whether you see, whether you believe he's got a huge future or not, whether you believe he has a huge impact on this team or not, the reality of the situation is he does. It's as simple as that. We can sit here all we like and say, oh no, I watch him every week, he's terrible, he doesn't do nothing, he's this, he's that, he's the other. He does. The stats will tell you he does. The stats will tell you this season that he's up there in the top categories of everything to do with this football club in terms of on the field action. And he also is somebody that plays every single week without fail for Sean Dyche's side. So the idea of Everton selling him in this window is baffling in itself, because as much as people mightn't love him, and I'm not saying he's great, and I'm not saying he's amazing, and I'm not saying he's amazing every week, but what I'm saying is he replaceable in the week that is left in this transfer window? I don't think he is for the club in Everton's situation. If we were Man City, yeah, fine, just go out and blast another 60 million on another one, but we're not. To think that there would even be a conversation about a loan is baffling for me. Absolutely baffling. And even Everton's previous board, who, as we've established numerous times over the last few years, were inept and incapable of doing their job properly, even they wouldn't sanction a loan deal for Amadou Onana in January, I don't think. That's how ridiculous that actually is. Oh yeah, you're a football club who've had 10 points deducted this season. You're struggling, because of that. You're in a relegation battle because of that. You've got another charge looming over your head, which could result in another points deduction. Not saying it will, but it could do. Okay, I know what we'll do. We'll ask if we can loan one of your most important players. No, absolutely not. Not loan with an obligation to buy. Not loan with with an option to buy, not loan with a guarantee to buy, not loan with a promise to buy, not loan with a absolute, we definitely will buy him in the summer, we promise you. Nothing. And another laughable part of that statement is an asking price of £50 million as problematic. It is a problem, you're right. It's an absolute problem. It's a problem because it should be double that. That's why it's problematic. It's problematic that Everton are asking for £50 million for the centre midfielder that starts week in, week out for the football club. for a 22-year-old centre midfielder that has got all of the attributes and physical attributes to go on to be one of the best centre midfielders in the league. Let's not forget, we're talking about somebody here who starts in centre midfield for Belgium, who are one of the top 4 rated nations in the world. Belgium, I believe, are within the top 4 of nations in the world in terms of football. How high are Belgium ranked football? And Amadou Onana starts for football. For Belgium. Starts for football, what am I talking about? He starts for Belgium. Belgium are 4th. It goes Argentina, France, England, and then Belgium. And that was of 21st of December, 2023. So, the 4th highest rated or best rated, whatever you want to call it, country in the world, our central midfielder starts for and has captained in the past. And we're asking for 50 million quid for him. When you think about Romeo Lavia, who went for over 60 million, and I don't think he's kicked the ball in a Chelsea shirt yet. You think about Caicedo, who went for £115 million. Enzo Fernandez, who went for over 100 million quid. And yeah, our centre midfielder, who frequently plays for his country, of which his country are ranked in the top 4 best countries in the world, we think that we should accept 50 million quid for him. No, I'm sorry, but that for me is absolutely mind-blowing. Absolutely mind-blowing. Again, I don't know why it's so difficult for Everton to just turn around. And maybe it isn't. Maybe Everton have already done this and this just isn't being reported in the media, and maybe I'm just not reading something. But for me, it's not difficult for Everton to turn around and go 100 million quid. 100 million quid, or we're not even considering it. I wouldn't even consider it anyway in January, especially not this late into January, because we leave ourselves with next to no room to bring in a replacement. So if we might have all that money in the bank, but what are we going to do with it? But certainly for the summer, I'd be saying 100 million quid. It's as simple as that. And for those people that laugh and say he's not worth 100 million quid, Cam, don't be there. And I'm seeing Evertonians laugh and saying, oh, don't be stupid, he's not worth that. What's he done to be worth that? What's Lavia done to be worth 60? What did Caicedo do? Or what? Have a half-decent season for Brighton? Is that what it is now? You have an half-decent season for a mid-table Premier League club and all of a sudden you're worth 100 million quid. He's not been worth 100 million quid since he's been at Chelsea, has he? He's been shite. So why should Everton allow our players to leave on the cheap? Why should Everton allow our players to leave for lesser money when other clubs are able to charge huge prices, inflated prices for players that aren't as good as the player that we've got now? And this, for me, is another fundamental problem with the current financial system in this league. We've just seen over the last week or so that both Everton and Nottingham Forest have been hit with another case of a breach with a case, another case in Everton's situation, a breach of profit and sustainability rules, and we've been we've been sent to a independent commission to determine what the punishment will be, if any. Nottingham Forest situation, a little bit different to Everton's. We've sat here and we've talked about Everton's enough over the last few months or so, and why it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But just to focus on Nottingham Forest situation for the moment. Nottingham Forest were found in breach of a P&S rule because of all of the spending that they've done over the last few months or so, or few years, fine. And it is different to Everton's because Nottingham Forest have spent hundreds of millions of quid in the last 3 years or so and have brought in about 400,000 players, in which Everton haven't. So clearly it's different to Everton's. But from what I'm led to believe, the reason Nottingham Forest were found in breach of a P&S rule is because they didn't sell Brennan Johnson in time. They were told that unless you sell Brennan Johnson by this date, when the accounts are expected, then if you don't sell him by this date, then you will breach FFP or P&S. If you do sell him by this date, then you won't breach P&S. So what happened then was you had Brentford come in and say, well, we'll give you 20 odd million quid for him, but we'll give you it now before the date, so that if you sell him to us, you can have that money, you can put it on your books, and you won't breach any profit and sustainability rule. And Forest went, and rightly so. This is the sustainable thing to do, by the way. Forest said no, because he's worth much more than that, so we'll keep it hold of him for a bit. We'll take the risk and we'll sell him for more. They did that. They kept it hold of him after the deadline, sold him to Spurs for what, 50 odd million quid, and then ended up breaking the breach because of that. Breaking the rule because of that, and now they're obviously under investigation like we are. So, firstly, there's nothing sustainable about saying to a club, you've got to sell your best player for cheaper, because this made-up deadline we've created here means if you don't sell them before this date, then you're going to be in breach of a rule, which also doesn't make any sense. So how is it sustainable to expect not small clubs, as Richard Masters would say, because Nottingham Forest are a huge football club like Everton are, but expect non-top six clubs to sell their better players for cheaper just to meet this imaginary deadline that doesn't make any sense anyway? How is that sustainable when they can sell them for more money a couple of weeks later to another bidder? And that is the fundamental issue with the financial structure in this country, and that's why it doesn't make any sense, and that's why it all needs completely scrapping. And in my opinion, forget an independent regulator coming in and overlooking. In my opinion, the Premier League shouldn't have anything to do with the financial the situation of football in this country, and how football is financially structured, and what rules are in place to make sure that football clubs don't go bust, and what punishments are given out if those rules are broken. The Premier League shouldn't have anything to do with that, because we know fundamentally the Premier League are more favourable towards the clubs that make them more money. Of course they are. Why wouldn't they be? It's a business. They'd obviously be more favourable to the people that are bringing them more money, as opposed to people that aren't bringing them as much money. And fundamentally, we now have a position where top six clubs or big six clubs are going to teams and saying, well, we want your best player, and we're going to give you a half of what he's worth, because you need that money, and if you don't get that money now, you're going to breach P&S. So really, he's worth 100 million, but we're only going to give you 40 million but we'll give you it right now in cash, so you don't break the rule. So the big six clubs are becoming stronger because they are bringing in the best players from the other clubs, but they're also getting those players at a cut price. So those other clubs not only are losing their better players, but they're not getting as much as they should be getting for them, so they're unable to replace them with players that are as good. Therefore, meaning that they stay there and those big six clubs stay up there. And that, for me, is clear as day. What's going on here? Absolutely clear as day. You've got it's like an eagle, isn't it? You've got a load of chicks that are, trying to survive and trying to keep themselves going and trying to feed off of what they've got and use their resources, and you've got a big eagle that just comes down and goes, yeah, we'll have that one, and goes away with it. That's all those top clubs, top six, big six, whatever you want to call them, clubs are doing. They're coming down on clubs that are close or are rumoured and reported to be on the edge of potentially breaking a P&S law, and they're going, well, we'll have your best player for next to nothing because you need the money and you can't afford to wait, because if you wait, you're going to get it with a breach, which potentially might mean a points deduction, which to you might mean 20 million anyway in terms of the places you'll drop. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense, in my opinion. The system is just so broken, and so it just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. And the last thing it is, this system is fair. It's the furthest from fair anything has ever been, in my opinion. And this is laughable. To think that A, Everton's asking price for Onana is 50 million is laughable, but then B, to think that Everton would accept a loan with an obligation to buy. I mean, what are they smoking in the Northeast? What are they smoking? Yeah, for me, as I said, I wouldn't be allowing Onana to leave anyway in this window. I think it would be stupid to allow that to happen. But certainly not for 50 million quid. It's 100 million quid, and it's 100 million quid because that's what the market is. Is he worth £100 million? No. But is Caicedo worth 100 million quid? No. Is Enzo Fernandez worth 100 million quid? No. Is Lavia worth 60 odd? No. Is Darwin Núñez worth 80 odd? No. So that's the market. We can't have a market where we say, oh yeah, every other team can charge as much as they want for their better players, but you can only charge 40 million because he's not that good. No, bollocks, mate. 100 million quid if you want him in the summer. Knock the door down. Anything less, don't bother wasting your time. Simple as that. Moving on then from one Everton midfielder to another, according to Fabrizio Romano, El Etifak approached Everton to ask for Abdoulaye Doucouré as one of their top targets to replace Jordan Henderson. Understand that Saudi camp also approached players camp. Saudi club also approached players camp. Everton still consider Doucouré a key player. Yeah, for me. As I've said before, this applies to everyone at the moment. We are now on the 22nd of January, which means we are just over a week from the month ending. And yeah, that is nowhere near enough time for Everton to replace some of our better players in the squad, of which Abdoulaye Doucouré is certainly one of our better players in the squad. And to allow him to leave with just over a week to go, knowing that we will struggle to replace him, because of course we will. Yeah, for me, no. Again, in the summer, it's a different situation then, it's a different conversation, but I don't care how much El Etifak needs to replace Jordan Henderson or how desperate Steven Gerrard is. No. It's just it's a no. And maybe, and hopefully, that has been Everton's answer. Hopefully Everton's answer has been, no chance, mate, we can't afford it. But who knows? But yeah, for me, no. And I don't think, to be honest, I don't think Abdoulaye Doucouré would want to leave. I know obviously the Saudi offers are quite lucrative. There's a lot of players out there that would be, would be interested in it because of the money that they'll be earning over there. But Duke strikes me as the type of player that wants to play at the highest level. And if he's playing at the highest level, and if he's playing consistently week in, week out at the highest level, he doesn't really strike me as the type of player that I'd want to walk away from that, especially when he's got such an affiliation with this football club and he knows how important he is to this football club. So yeah, I can't see that. I can't see that happening. I can't see that happening. And then finally, according to Calcio Mercato, I can never say that word. Through, let's say, connections, Ben Godfrey's name has been spoken about at AC Milan. The defender is seen as a possible low-cost option. Sheffield United and Leeds are also said to be interested. This is one that I could see happening more likely than any of the others. Ben obviously has not had a lot of game time of late. Bit of a mad situation for Ben, isn't it? Bit of a mad situation. He come in and he had so much potential and he done so well in that COVID year under Carlo Ancelotti. He's playing left back in that flat back four, and he's had various periods of his Everton career where he's been in and out the squad, and he's looked good at times and he's looked terrible at times. But I think at the moment it just doesn't seem like his career is going to progress any further. He's not going to get in over Tarkowski, who's an incredibly reliable and consistent player and is, touch wood, barely ever injured, and he ain't going to get in over Jared Brandwaite either. So yeah, he's probably not even third choice with Dyche, because obviously of Michael Keane. So yeah, I could see Ben Godfrey being open to moving away from the football club. Again, I don't think Everton should be weakening their squad even by allowing a fourth choice centre back to leave at this point in the transfer window. I think it'd be silly, but we'll see if anything progresses on that one. I think that's more of a deal likely to be made in the summer, if I'm being honest with you, but we'll wait and see. There you go then. We are going to leave it there. If you have enjoyed this one, please do leave a like. We will be back over the next couple of days with more content, so don't forget to look out for that one. If you have enjoyed this one, please do leave a like. It does only take a second, and if you are new to the channel, please do subscribe. It would mean a huge amount to me. Big thank you all for watching. Leave a like if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new, and we'll see you after.